So I want to start by talking about US money supply, which has gone up more in 2 weeks. That's over 700 billion to be exact, than in the 6 weeks during the pandemic. It's the most aggressive we've seen in US history. So, Jim, why is no one challenging the Fed about this?
Well, the main reason, Danielle, is people don't understand the Fed. They don't understand monetary policy. And by the way, the elites like it that way just fine. The average American probably thinks Federal Reserve is a brand of aged whiskey or something. Look, you understand it. I understand it. The Board of Governors understand it. Actually, they don't. They're not very good at what they do. There's some experts and analysts and some members of Congress who do, but that's about it. This is not the creation of money is one of the great mysteries. It's actually not that big a mystery, except it is because people don't know how it works. So they're not held to account. They're also technically independent agency. The regional Federal Reserve banks in the U.S. are privately owned. They're owned by banks in the area. If you said who owns the Fed, I would say Bank of America, Citi, Wells Fargo, and JP Morgan, and a bunch of other banks. The Board of Governors are appointed by the president, but there's actually a vacancy at the moment. That's more inside baseball. So that's the problem. It's not well understood. Now, for those who do understand it, they have increased the money supply radically, but it really doesn't matter very much at this point because there's no velocity, there's no turnover of money. We can talk more about that.
Okay, so that's a good, explanation of it. But let's talk about the consequences of this excessive money supply, Jim. What does it mean for, the average American here?
It's not people psychologically. People tend to dwell on the number of prices that they see going up, and they ignore the price decreases. But again, clothing's a big item. It's, as I say, they're practically giving it away.
No, that's a very, very good point, Jim. And how about if you say we're not going to feel the repercussions of the money supply yet, how about other asset classes like gold? Would it get a bounce here because of this increase in money supply?
Well, gold is getting a bounce, but it's getting a bounce for other reasons. First of all, you're right about gold, Danielle. It's when people say, is the dollar going up or the dollar going down? They look at the euro US dollar cross rate, or they look at the dollar yen cross rate, et cetera. And I tell people those measures are meaningless because, if you're in the export import business, you care about the foreign exchange rate. But all the major currencies, the 7 or 8 major currencies that make up the IMF Global Reserve Report, they're all passengers in a lifeboat. They're all survivors in a lifeboat. Some may be taller, some may be smarter, whatever, but they're all in the same boat. They're all going to sink or survive together. The only way you can understand what's going on in currencies is compare it to gold. And so when the dollar price of gold goes up, I just say, well, that means gold doesn't change. It's atomic number 79. It's an element. It's the same thing. If the dollar price of gold is going up, that means the dollar is getting weaker. If the dollar price is going down, that means the dollar is getting stronger. So if you want to forecast gold prices, you have to ask yourself, is the dollar getting stronger or weaker? And then that will give, that's a pretty good basis for making a forecast. But the difference between gold and all the other currencies is gold, of course, is the only one not printed by a central bank, not subject to manipulation as a supply. There is new supply, but new supply has been static at about 300 metric tons per year for the last 5 years. So that's not expanding dramatically. And that's a very small, it's about a 1.6% increase on the global above ground supply. So that's not a big number either. But gold is your thermometer to tell if the patient is sick or not, the patient being here's the thing, Bitcoin and gold are both going up because of concerns because of loss of confidence in the dollar. So I don't see a Bitcoin gold trade-off. I mean, first of all, the numbers don't add up. The total market cap, I understand that Bitcoin in percentage terms, it's had a great run in 2020. It's gone from about $9,000 to $20,000. That's a 100% increase. I get that. But the entire market cap of Bitcoin, if you took all the Bitcoins in the world times $20,000, it's not that much. It's certainly tiny compared to gold, and gold is tiny compared to the foreign exchange market. So there's no, it's not like a zero-sum game and people are getting out of gold and they're going into Bitcoin. That's not happening. What is happening is that people are getting into gold and into Bitcoin at the same time because they want to get out of the dollar.
So I want to take a recent synopsis or tweet you put out. COVID will fade, and not soon, but eventually. The economy will recover, not quickly, but it will slowly recover. What will not fade soon is the new depression. The effects will be intergenerational. This is the topic about on your new book, The New
Yep.
Great Depression. Tell us about it.
Depression does not mean continuous declining GDP. It means depressed growth. We'll get growth, but it will be below trend, even worse than the 2009 to 2019 expansion, maybe growth of 1.7%. But right now, right this minute, we're going into a second recession. Recessions are technically defined, 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP. Doctors are going to write books about the pandemic. Economists will again eventually get around to writing books about the economic state of affairs, although economists tend to prefer papers to books. But this book tackles both head on and draws the linkages between them. And the main linkage, say, well, here's the pandemic, here's the depression. What's the link between the two of them? The answer is it's the lockdown. Lockdowns don't work. They're unnecessary. There are things you can do. There are better things you can do that are more effective and less expensive, but that's not what the politicians want. But we're in a new lockdown right now, so you're going to get a new recession. This is one of the easiest forecasts I've ever done. First quarter of 2021, you're going to have a recession. These stocks are going to back off. Don't worry about inflation. You should be more concerned about deflation, which is coming. And gold will do very well in that environment because of the political and economic uncertainty. And also, we're going to get declining interest rates. So lower interest rates is a tailwind for gold. Political uncertainty is a tailwind for gold. So gold should do very well starting now going into 20. I wouldn't get all out of equity. I would lighten up on equities. I would increase my allocation to cash because cash reduces volatility in your portfolio. And I would absolutely have 10% of investable assets in gold, silver, or gold mining shares. Now, some people say, well, Jim, if that's the way you feel, why not go all in? Why not 50%? You know, but that's up to you. I don't recommend those kind of high percentages. You don't need them. If I'm right about the price of gold going to $10,000 to $15,000 an ounce, in the guy said, don't wear masks. And I said, wear masks. And he said, we'll get through this. Oh, it's really bad. You know, so he's just a bureaucrat. And he likes to say, well, we don't determine economic policy. We're just doctors. We're just giving our advice. That's not true. They took over the economy. Now, I fought President Trump for allowing that. Trump did a lot of things right, but that was one of the big things he did wrong. He put the doctors in charge of the economy, and doctors complain, and I'm going to get this criticism on my book. I can see it coming. Well, hey, Jim, you're not an immunologist. What do you know about medicine? Well, I turn around to the immunologist and say, what do you know about the economy? The answer is nothing. You know, the old saying, Danielle, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If you're an immunologist, everything looks like a lockdown. No one, actually Melinda Gates came out and said this, and other, bubble creatures, like, living in her elite bubble and completely out of touch with the real world. She said, well, when we said this lockdown thing, we didn't really quite think through the impact on the economy. It's like, well, duh, you lock down the economy, you're going to get 60 million claims for unemployment, which is what we've got with you.